everyone. Are we all ready for story time again? Nellie's decided to join us. She might not stay for the whole story, but let's wait and see. I'm so chuffed that loads of you enjoyed watching it. I've got to say hi to a few people who left me gorgeous messages. Jaden and Dylan. Jaden, how are you doing without the football? Maisie, Max, Martha, I'm pleased you like the room. I did tidy up for you. Renee, Luke, I would love to get my flute out. I'll do a bit of practice and then maybe I'll get back to you on that one. And Callum, Sebastian, Alicia, Brooke, I miss you too. But we'll all be together again soon. In the meantime, enjoy the story and I hope you and Leah are behaving. Right, today we've got the next one. Mr. and Mrs. Lovey-Dovey and the Sea of Tears. So, Mr. Lovey had taught English at St. Valentine's School. For as long as anyone could remember, he dressed as if all his clothes had been knitted by his elderly mother, which they were. The man was never seen without his knitted tie, cardigan and tweed suit. One day, a new history teacher joined the school. Her name was Miss Dovey. She dressed as if she made her clothes out of old curtains, which she did. The lady favoured floral frocks that went all the way up to her neck and all the way down to her ankles. The pair were made for each other. On her very first day, Miss Dovey was put on break time duty. Mr. Lovey was too. As all the boys and girls of St. Valentine's School played it, these two lovebirds caught their first glimpse of each other. To begin, their shyness prevented them from doing any more than glancing at each other briefly, then looking away. However, soon the looks became longer and longer as they gazed into each other's eyes. Ah! Red and brown leaves fell from the trees around them. Patter. A gust of wind swirled their hair into the air. Swirl. The sound of a dozen violins soared from the music room. Da-dee-da-dum. The famous balcony scene from the most romantic play ever written, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, was being rehearsed in the concert hall. But soft, what light through yonder window breaks? It is the east, and Juliet is the sun. In no time, their hearts were full to bursting. Neither could resist each other a moment longer. Mr. Lovey and Miss Dovey opened their arms and began rushing towards each other. They scampered across the playground like gazelles, knocking small children out of their way. Oof! Ouch! Oof! Ah! Oof! No! Nellie's bored already. Eventually, the pair embraced. Wallop! They held on to each other tightly. It was as if they'd been searching the world for all eternity, and now they'd both finally found their soulmate. Such was their joy that they both burst into floods of tears. Boo-hoo-hoo! Yuck. Revolting, isn't it? What could be more vomit-inducing than a teacher in the throes of love? Puke. The answer is simple. Two teachers in the throes of love. Double puke. That first meeting was only the beginning. Soon Mr. Lovey was always loitering outside the history room to blow a kiss to Miss Dovey. Mwah. Meanwhile, Miss Dovey was always popping into the English classroom to drop off a cup of tea and a slice of her homemade Victoria sponge cake to Mr. Lovey. Clink, boff. One day, he ended up eating 27 slices and had to be taken to the sick room. In no time, the pair of love-struck teachers were calling out messages of love to each other down the school corridors. "I miss you already, my beautiful rainbow," he would say, even though she'd only been gone for 5 seconds. "Until break time, my handsome prince of love," she would call back. All the kids at St. Valentine's found the pair puke-tastic. You might be quietly sitting in the library when you'd be caught in the crossfire of one of Miss Dovey's slobbery air kisses aimed at Mr. Lovey. Splat! Or you might be tucking into your lunch when you'd meet with the horrifying sight of Mr. Lovey's face squashed up against the window of the dining hall, gazing lovingly at Miss Dovey. Squelch! Your lunch would end up being sprayed all over the window. So far, so bad. However, things took a turn for the worse. Much worser. The teachers' romance blossomed and bloomed and even blossomed. And one day, in front of the entire school, Mr. Lovey got down on one knee. "Do you need a hand up?" asked Miss Dovey. "Not just yet," he replied. "Ever since I first set eyes on you in the playground." There was still a lot of chattering from the kids in the dining hall. "Please, can I have quiet? I can still hear talking. Thank you." The school fell silent. "Ever since I did that bit. Miss Dovey, whenever I see you, my heart explodes with joyousness. Please, could you make me the happiest, wappiest man in the world by becoming my wife? Miss Dovey, will you marry me?" From his pocket he produced a ring that his mother had knitted and presented it to Miss Dovey. The history teacher burst into floods of tears. "Boo-hoo-hoo! Is that a yes?" inquired the English teacher. Miss Dovey couldn't speak, so she just nodded her head and whimpered. Then Mr. Lovey burst into tears as well. "Boo-hoo-hoo!" He was still down on one knee and beginning to look uncomfortable. "Ouch! Actually, please could you help me up now? My knee has gone numb." The wedding day was set, and the entire school was made to come. The church, which was beside a river, was only a stone's throw from the school, so there was absolutely no excuse. All the girls were forced to wear bridesmaids' dresses made out of curtains. "Ha ha!" laughed the boys, although they shouldn't have, as they were forced to wear pink page boy outfits knitted by Mr. Lovey's mother. "Hee hee!" laughed the girls. Mr. Lovey wore a three-piece powder blue suit, knitted, of course, by his mother. She bawled throughout the entire service. "Boo!" Meanwhile, Miss Dovey wore an enormous puff of a dress that was fashioned from net curtains. It made her look like a meringue. Although the kids were missing lessons, nothing could be more boring than a marriage service that lasted 9 hours. It was so bum-numbingly lengthy because the groom insisted on reading aloud a 10,000-line love poem he'd written about his bride. "You are the angel of my heart. In front of you I would not fart, or burp or scratch my bottom, because you, Miss Dovey, are the one." The bride, meanwhile, had written a 4-hour opera about the groom, which she sang in German. As the wedding guests began to nod off, the weary-looking vicar finally pronounced them man and wife. "You are now Mr. and Mrs. Lovey Dovey." The bride burst into floods of tears. "Boo-hoo-hoo! I do hope they are happy, wappy tears, love of my life," inquired the groom. "I have never been happier, wappier, boo-hoo-hoo." Seeing his wife cry, Mr. Lovey Dovey couldn't help but cry too. "Boo-hoo-hoo-hoo!" They cried for a good hour or so. The tears collected in giant puddles on the floor. The vicar looked at her watch and sighed. "I am very sorry, but I have a christening and then a funeral to get through today, so could you please just bog off?" Still the teachers sobbed. "Boo-hoo-hoo! I said bog right off." The vicar lobbed a hymn book at the elderly organist who'd fallen asleep. Whiz-clunk! Ouch! Upon waking, the organist began to play the wedding march. Da-da-da-da! Then, when the pair didn't move, the vicar rolled up the sleeves of her cassock and with all her might she pushed them out of the church. "Bog off!" Everyone at the school breathed a sigh of relief. The longest wedding in the history of the world was finally over. Wrong. It had only just begun. For months afterwards, Mr. and Mrs. Lovey Dovey went on and on and on and on and on and on about their special day. They really were two of the world's very worst teachers. The Lovey Doveys spent lessons forcing their pupils to watch the 9-hour wedding video over and over again. They cancelled the school production of Grease and forced the children to stage Mrs. Lovey Dovey's opera about Mr. Lovey Dovey instead. They cleared all the trophies out of the glass cabinet and replaced them with Mrs. Lovey Dovey's meringue wedding dress. They threw confetti over each other whenever they passed in the corridor. Worst of all, in assembly, Mr. Lovey-Dovey recited his 10,000-line poem every single morning. For you, my heart will forever be true. Without you, I would always be blue. Blue as in sad, not like as in a smurf. So far, so really bad, but things were about to get badder. One day, a bump appeared in Mrs. Lovey-Dovey's tummy. I'm going to have a baby, woo! I won't go into exactly how the bump got bigger and bigger, but it did, until one day there was no bump anymore, just a really big baby. Boo-hoo-hoo, he cried. Boo-hoo-hoo, cried his adoring parents. That really big baby grew up to be a really big boy. Before long, he became a pupil at St. Valentine's in a school uniform made by his mummy out of curtains, of course. Now there were 3 Lovey-Doveys at the school. Mr. Lovey-Dovey, Mrs. Lovey-Dovey, and Master Lovey-Dovey. Of course, the boy was the ultimate teacher's pet. He received top marks in everything, 100%, 101%, and 1,000,000%. In English classes, he would put his hand up after every single sentence his dear papa uttered. Yes, my angel sent from heaven, Mr. Lovey-Dovey would ask. Daddy Waddy? Yes, Sonny Wunny. I just need to telly-welly you that you are the mostest, wostest, wondermental papa poo-poo in the whole wide worldy woo-wah. Mr. Lovey-Dovey would burst into tears. Boo-hoo-hoo, I love you so much, my heart is full to bursting. Then he would scamper down the corridor to find his wife, drag her out of her history classroom and into his. Yes, my hubby-wubby, she would ask. I just wanted to thank you for giving me the greatest gift life could ever offer. What is that? Please, pray tell. This perfect, perfect child of ours. Then it would be Mrs. Lovey-Dovey's turn to burst into tears. Boo-hoo-hoo! Why are you crying, Mama? The boy would ask. Because I am the happiest, wappiest mummykins in the whole wide world. This would make the boy burst into tears too. Boo-hoo-hoo! And I am the happiest, wappiest, sappiest son. Then the trio would all embrace and weep some more, as they were the happiest, sappiest, battiest family who ever lived. Boo-hoo-hoo! Yuck, yuck, and yuck again. The Lovey-Doveys needed everyone to know how much they adored each other, so one morning they hosted an assembly together. The theme they picked was Love, Sweet Love. Just want to show you that. Can you imagine me dressing up for an assembly like that? As the family shuffled into the sports hall, dressed as huge pink love hearts, the kids burst out laughing. Ha! Mr. Lovey-Dovey looked most displeased. Quiet, please. There is absolutely nothing funny about dressing like this. Yes, there is, shouted a joker from the back. You look like a pink wafer. We are dressed like this, continued Mrs. Lovey-Dovey, so we can celebrate our most wondermental love with you all. Every morning after we wake up, added Master Lovey-Dovey, we spend a few hours telly-wellying each other how much we love each other. So today we're going to share it with the holy school. So perhaps one day you can all be as lovely, wubbly, woo-woo as us. Ugh. The whole school groaned. What terrific bores this family were. Daddy Waddy? Yes, Sonny Wunny. You be Guinea Winnie. Show these nasty, rotten children how wondermental we are. Mr. Lovey-Dovey took a deep breath, turned to his wife and began. Every morning at dawn I say to my wife, I love you more than rainbows. Then Mrs. Lovey-Dovey turned to her son and said, and I say to my son, I love you more than moonbeams. Then Master Lovey-Dovey turned to his father and said, and I say to my Papa Poo-Poo, I love you more than ice cream. Then they all burst into floods of tears. Boo-hoo-hoo! This went on and on and on, and then on some more. On and on and on. Onning and onning and onning. The assembly was going on all day. The tears flowed and flowed. Puddles of them formed, then pools, then lakes. The kids in the sports hall soon realised that they were ankle deep in tears. I love you more than snowflakes. I love you more than rose petals. I love you more than sunshine. Boo-hoo-hoo. This was getting dangerous. There was a very real chance they could drown in tears. Next, the kids were up to their knees. Slosh. Then they were up to their waists. Slosh. Before long, they were up to their chests, only their heads were bobbing above the tears. They screamed for help. Stop! Help! Please! No! I can't swim! They climbed up onto their chairs for safety until the tear level rose and rose and rose, and they were forced to scramble up the bars on the walls. Up here! Quick! It's our only hope! The lovey-doveys were in their own bubble of love, utterly unaware of the mayhem they were causing. I love you more than summer meadows. I love you more than newborn bunnies. I love you more than Turkish delight. Boo-hoo-hoo. So oblivious, in fact, that they didn't realise when the floor swept them off the ground. Still they carried on with their declarations of love as they bobbed around in a sea of tears. I love you more than freshly baked croissants. I love you more than baby dolphins. I love you more than a nice comfy pair of slippers that have been warmed by an open fire. Boo-hoo-hoo! Tears and tears and more tears came. Whoosh! Eventually the doors to the sports hall couldn't stay shut anymore. The lovey-doveys were swept out of the hall on a tidal wave of their own tears. Whoosh! The three were carried through the playground, past the church before streaming into the river. Splosh! Still they carried on their nonsense. I love you more than double cream. I love you more than baby hamsters. I love you more than dandelions. The river was wide and the water flowed fast. In no time, the lovey-doveys were swept far out to sea. For the first time in years, St. Valentine's returned to normal. The school was so much more peaceful without this irritating family around. However, one lunchtime, many months later, the doors to the dining hall burst open. Boom! The kids stared open-mouthed in shock. Everyone had assumed the lovey-doveys had perished at sea. Oh no, they were very much alive. The trio staggered in, their clothes now dripping wet, all three of them sporting long, straggly beards. You will be delighted to know we're alive, they all shouted to deafening silence from the kids. We cuddled-woodled together for warmth, announced Master Lovey-Dovey. We survived on huggy-wuggies and kisses, added Mrs. Lovey-Dovey. We survived thanks to the power-wower of love, concluded Mr. Lovey-Dovey. The lovey-doveys were back and lovey-doveyer than ever. Now it was the turn of all the kids to burst into floods of tears. Boo-hoo-hoo. Well, we have to thank Mr. Walliams again for letting us read the book. I hope you enjoyed tonight, and I hope that sent you off to sleep, hopefully after I'd finished the end of it. Tomorrow we'll try another one. Until then, stay safe and I'll see you soon. Bye, guys.